Galimera, galispera, galinichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. Happy Dicky Bow Thursday to all. And after maybe not even half a season yet, but after many meltdowns, are we not? We score 3 goals from open play, Stoke City, one thing to the other, craziness. I thought it would be time to just take a beat and have a little bit of the Arsenal State of the Union with one of our all-time favourites. Squaddies, for those of you who made it live, welcome. For those listening on replay, let's rock and roll.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Hola, hola. Welcome, everyone, to the Highbury Squad. Doing a show on a Thursday. I know I've been dicking around with times. I mean, it is Dicky Bow Thursday, so I guess I get to dick around a little bit. But for those who've joined live, thank you. For those listening on replay, and remember, we're back on Apple after our virus attack. Under attack, the Highbury Squad was. But we're available on audio again, and welcome to the show. One of my favorites, looking so handsome in red tonight. Albert. Gosh. Hola. You're mute.
That's it. Amateur mistake. That's the way to introduce myself. People, I don't know if you put this on audio, Sophie, but I was talking, but my lips were moving, but Sophie couldn't understand a word of what I was talking about when she asked me. But it's, Sophie, an absolute pleasure. When you put the call out, I said, yes, I'm absolutely there. I'll get to see my Mikel. Big up to the people, the squaddies in the chat. And let's talk Arsenal and everything else.
Let's do it. Keep the updates coming, Barry. I mean, Demian and Albert are due an Arsenal women's show, and it's going to happen imminently. The people have been asking for it. Also, if we don't do it for Emmanuel in Australia, he may have a conniption. So Demian's been on the road. You know, he's a musician and stuff.
Busy man.
Doing some big things. And Albert is also a busy young man. But they will be doing an Arsenal women's show imminently. 3-0 up. Russo got another one. She's on fire.
Of course she is. She's flaming good, man. Flipping hell.
She is. I love her. Make sure you do what our chief like officer wants, okay? Tammy's in charge.
Love Tammy.
And hit the like button. Carol is here. John, good to see you, John. Hello, welcome. PW, Galispera to you too as well. Barry's here. Seb, good to see you back. Hola, everyone, and welcome to Squad Central. I wanted to do a show a bit different tonight, Albert. By the way, stay tuned because I have some housekeeping announcements at the end of the show, and you're not going to want to miss that at all. I wanted to do a show with a bit of a difference, but before I do, I'm going to pay homage because it is Dicky Bow Thursday. And you know what? We're going to start doing a shout out. We do it on social media every single Thursday. And by the way, our good friend Mike Hertz from Not Another Arsenal podcast has always done it on Thursdays, and he even has the cutest Dicky Bow t-shirts. But today's Dicky Bow Thursday, we pay homage to the gaffer. Not too bad. What do you think? We're going to give them marks out of 10 for how they rock the Dicky Bow, Albert. Let me get rid of the banner. I like it when the Dicky Bow kind of is a little not aligned, like on our right. But the one on the left, it looks silk as well. You know, I'm sure it's made of the finest silk in the land. But happy Dicky Bow Thursday to everyone. And today is our gaffer as our Dicky Bow honoree. Marks out of 10 from you, Albert.
Oh, he does look sharp in the suit. I must admit. Our boss Mikel ARTETA. Looks dapper, very amazing. I'm going to give him a 9, Sophie. I don't believe in perfect 10s. Not yet. Not just yet. I'll give him a 9. A 9's a high score, though. Listen, 9's good, but not a 10. Not a 10 for me.
9 is. Tammy gives him a 7.
What?
Yeah. Hey, Matt G. You know why? I think I set the standard high. If you guys saw on the old Twitter, still can't call it X, the Havertz bow tie and the Martinelli bow tie shot. The Havertz one where he's spraying. It's like if Hugo Boss aren't hiring him to do the commercial, Albert, I don't know what they're doing, but it's from his wedding day, and literally it is absolute gold. It's a great one. And Tony Adams, who always I like to call, he looks like a bit of a hot mess with his wacky wardrobe. But you know, he's Tony Adams, so give him a 10 out of 10.
Didn't he wear, wasn't the one of the recent England games he wore? Was he wearing a yellow suit or
yes.
Yellow? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Only Tony could do that. Yeah, only Tony could do it.
Only Tony could do that. And actually, I think he'd be a great character in Paddington. Like, if there's a next Paddington movie, I think Tony Adams would be brilliant in that. Hello, Kay Marlon and Adrian and Matt and everyone else who's joined as well. Welcome to Squad Central. Kev, welcome as well. If you have any Dicky Bow recommendations, you can send them to the highburysquad@gmail.com, the highburysquad@gmail.com, and we will post. If you want to nominate your dad, your granddad, your wife, your husband, your brother, your sister, your dog, we would like to start sharing those on Thursday. Welcome to you too, Ian. Right, Albert, let's get stuck into it. 6 minutes in. I haven't said anything about football. I've been talking about Dicky Bows and I don't know what else. So I reached out to Albert and I said, I want to do this kind of State of the Union show. Now, look, we're not going to get deep into, we're not accountants here. All right. We're not going to
absolutely not.
We're not going to get deep into this stuff, but it's such a weird season. And depending on what Arsenal fan you speak to, Albert, they're still, you know, believing. There's many that don't think the sky is falling. There's many who do think the sky is falling. And so I thought to myself, well, let's look into this a little bit, right? Not through data and science and analytics, but what we see, what we feel, what we still believe is to come, and what the potential is overall for the rest of the season. And I thought to myself, how many Arsenal players can I actually fit on a thumbnail?
It's a great, Sophie, that was amazing. I thought I was on there, and I had to look closer. I thought, no, I'm actually not on there. I'm not.
You know what's really funny? I was like, I'm missing someone. And you know who it was? It was Odegaard. I was like, wow, how could I? Yeah, I know.
The captain.
So firstly, let's start at the very tippy top, because I think of all the things that are going on the pitch, there's a tendency, I think, for me, and I've been called a brown envelope person when I support the Cronkies and I back the Cronkies, and I say that they're one of the best owners in football. And I truly believe that. I really do. When you think about the evolution of the club, especially since the protests, especially since they became sole owners, I think Arsenal Football Club is healthy off the pitch. So before we get stuck into the glory and the potential, let's talk a little bit about club off the pitch, Albert. What's your sense of this Arsenal, the evolution of the Cronkies, where you think we are as a club off the pitch?
Great question. I think sometimes when we look at Arsenal and we talk about not winning a Premier League since 03-04 and success and what other teams are doing, and I know it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. As Sophie mentioned, a very key word at the top of the show, we are not accountants, but it is, as a fan and our kind of due diligence, to know a tiny bit or a little bit what the club's kind of doing off the pitch. And we spoke in terms of some of the financial stuff with it, and it's all relevant. And what I mean by that is, obviously Sophie sent me some amazing pieces. Arsenal's revenue for 23-24, there's a 22.5% increase. Now, the reason why that is, and if you want to know the exact figures, is from 536 million to 657.6 million. You have to bear in mind, Arsenal were out of the Champions League for 7 years. 7 years. And the reason why I mentioned the particular figures I mentioned is because we talk about revenue, how important it is. So if we even look at the women's game and Arsenal not being in the Champions League last season. That killed them, because you have to, as much as we are fans and custodians of the football club and we watch the team week in, week out. And I know some people don't like the term customers or business, but so for the reality is it is. And there are certain people in charge of Arsenal Football Club that have to look after the books and balance certain things. And as many of you will know, you don't have to be an expert. Arsenal have spent a number of years letting players run down their contracts and going for nothing. That is not sustainable. And actually, if I'm going to be really, really honest, and it's just my words, I look at that and it's laughable, and it shouldn't be happening. It should not be happening. You should be able to, as a football club and as people in your club, in the business side of it, regardless of fan sentiment, you move players on for profit. You make money on players that are assets at the club. Unfortunately, Arsenal have not been good at doing that for a number of years. We are in a position now, though, and before anyone starts losing their mind in the chat or when they watch it back, for example, and I emphasize the word example, you have the likes of a Martin Odegaard and a Bukayo Saka at Arsenal. A number of years ago, we didn't have players of that caliber that we could move on. And that's an issue. But as I mentioned before, us being back in the Champions League is pivotal. And it's not just about, listen, I love for Arsenal to get more European trophies. Our European heritage is, how can I put this nicely, Sophie? Is it watershed time yet? It's rubbish. It's rubbish. It's rubbish. We lost.
We're going to get onto that, though. We're going to get onto that.
We lost 4 finals in a row. So I think the important thing is, I know, listen, Arsenal fans, I know in the chat, don't bear with me. Bear when I say this. I'd love us to win trophies in December and January, but that's not how football works. And I know patience is at the bottom of the bar amongst the Arsenal fan base. Believe me, whether whether you're a content creator, whether you are a guest on a podcast, or you're always on social media, whatever way you want to phrase it or chop it up. Arsenal being back in the Champions League and what they're doing in terms of the revenue coming in, like I said, with the 23-24, you won't get the full audit, you won't get the full financial picture, I think, till early 2025, and you'll easy source that kind of figure out what Arsenal are doing. But it is important because we've moaned for years about not being in the hunt and being in the race for bringing in top quality players, inverted commas. Arsenal are in that conversation now. The Declan Rice signing doesn't happen. It definitely doesn't happen 5 to 10 years ago. You're just having a laugh. Not Arsenal Football Club. Maybe if you're playing FIFA, but that's about it. But Arsenal going forward in the next, let's say ballpark figure, next 5 years, when the top players come about, Arsenal will not only be in the conversation, they should be in the forefront of bringing better players to come to Arsenal Football Club. I'm not an accountant, so I'm not there in charge of how much the players get paid who come in or are at the club at the present time. But it's very, very important going forward, Arsenal get this right, because one thing before I finish up, Sophie, is, and I've banged on about this for so many flipping years, Arsenal need to be better at selling players. They need to be better at selling players. Yes, we had a small little snippet of it in the summer with certain players being moved on. Cool. I still think personally there should have been a few more players that are moved on for a monetary value. But Arsenal are way behind the 8 ball with that. I'd go probably even as far as maybe 15, 20 years, maybe even more. But that's something that me and Sophie are not in charge of, as much as we talk and get angry about Arsenal, because there's people that are paid a handsome amount of money to get these decisions right. So going forward, it's not what Arsenal fans want to hear, because we're supporters, we watch them on TV and we go and watch the games, but just bear in the back of your mind, these are important things to know.
I am going to bring it up because it is on my agenda this evening. So also, Arsenal's merchandise revenue for 22-23 season was 76.5 million. There was an 18% drop off that year because a drop in sales of the new home kit. Design has a lot to do with sales as well. Shirt sales. Arsenal sold 850,000 replica shirts globally, a record for the club since they partnered with Adidas in 2019. Arsenal has increased their kit and apparel revenue in recent years by releasing retro streetwear collections, designer collaborations, and high concept kits. Of course, there's the match day and broadcast revenue as well. When it comes to marketing and collections, there's no other club that does it like us.
No.
There is no other club. And I shared an image yesterday about how it was about people who click on Arsenal stories, Arsenal social in the United States. And it actually looked like the map of when Donald Trump won the election. It was pretty much a landslide for the Arsenal. I think people have mistaken Albert not doing well in the Premier League and not winning the Premier League for so long with being a small club. And I say this with respect, and I've said this on the show many times, is that Arsenal are a big club doing nothing, not even small things in the Premier League over the years. Manchester City are a small club doing big things in the Premier League over the years. And there's a difference. And Manchester City, of course, is growing. If you look at their social media numbers, they're growing. Their revenue is growing. Merchandise, new fans, call them plastic, call them what you want. They're attracting new fans because winning attracts new fans. But in terms of we are the perennial kings, Elliot. There's no doubt about
that jacket yesterday, Jesus Christ, man. Oh, that was beautiful.
Tammy just said it. Love that jacket they wore on the pitch last night.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. Demsek says football is strange, where the customer expects the company to spend money for their happiness. Barry says, don't Liverpool kill it when it comes to shirt sales? Maybe, yeah. I mean, Liverpool are huge. Manchester United, Barcelona. We're 7th in the top 10 when it comes to, I can't remember if it was shirt sales or overall revenue. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that it's an area that Arsenal really needed to improve and grow. When you don't win the Premier League, when you're not in the Champions League, when you're only winning FA Cups, how do you grow your commercial revenue? And I think Arsenal weren't doing enough to fill that vertical within the business overall and growing the commercial revenue. And I think now you could say that with businessmen like the Cronkies involved on that commercial revenue side, really super smart people at the tippy top of the mountain, I would say, with regards to our first subject, how healthy is the club off the pitch? I think it's fair to say that it's very healthy. You may or may not like that, but I think it's
no, you're right, Sophie. And to add to that as well, I know obviously everyone's favorite topics of FFP and profit and sustainability. Touch wood, Arsenal do not ever come up in the conversation of any wrongdoings. We've seen clubs do it. Leicester have had their issues. Nottingham Forest have had their issues. There's a number of different clubs that had their issues, but I'm hoping it's not a coincidence that Arsenal haven't been chucked in any of those type of conversations in terms of how they are manipulating or not doing things by the book. So that's a good thing. I know Arsenal fans obviously had their grumbles in terms of what we spend or what we waste our money on in terms of player recruitment, but that's something I'm sure we'll get into a bit more.
Yeah.
But it is important it is important thing that you raise it, and I think we're not expecting Arsenal fans to sit there in their spare time, whether it be in their lunch breaks and their jobs, whatever you do, people to be sitting there analysing the Arsenal books because you're not accountants. But it is our duty and due diligence to know certain aspects of what's happened with the football club outside of what goes on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. And look, you always want to you never know. I mean, it seems like we've done things the right way, but also, as Demsek just said, let's remember FFP is to stop clubs going bust, chasing fan dreams. And, you know, I think once you spend 100 million on Declan Rice, the fans expect you to do that every single window. And that's just not going to happen. Cliff says he buys retro and replicas from Hong Kong or wherever. When we win a trophy, Arsenal Adidas will get some dosh out of me. Yeah, and some people are merch people and some people are not. And I think it's it's healthy to say that as a club, we seem to be doing the right things and in a really healthy way. Let's stay on the business side just for a little bit before we get stuck into Mikel and the team. A huge occurrence for us this season, and that was Adu leaving and us looking for a sporting director. And my question to you is, do we really need Man United sloppy seconds, or maybe they're not sloppy seconds, they're sloppy thirds, because, you know, Dan Ashworth was at Newcastle as well. I'm not sure if you have a strong opinion on him or what we're doing. A lot of Arsenal fans wanted Albert, an Arsenal person, to come in. Some fans don't care as long as it's the right person. There are some fans that would even look outside of the Premier League, not necessarily have Premier League experience, but just the contacts and the ability to do deals, the art of the deal, as they say. What's your take on the sporting director position? Does it concern you? It hasn't been filled yet. Are you happy that it hasn't been filled yet and they're doing an extensive executive search on this? And Ashworth, in the manner in which he left Manchester United and some of the stories about why and who he wanted. What's your take, Albert?
So I have a bit to say about this, actually. No, I'm actually not surprised. I'm actually not surprised the vacancy hasn't been filled. Absolutely not surprised at all. One, because there are a plethora of sporting directors out there. Whether they're available and how easy they're to get are two completely different questions. And I spoke about this on Potsy's show quite a few weeks ago now. I think the issue, talking about Dan Ashworth's done some very good things at the FA. He's got a relationship with Richard Garlick from West Brom days. Done a good job at Brighton. I assume I'd have to speak to some of my Newcastle people of how good a job he was doing. But you know, when you're headhunted by Manchester United, I guess it was a bit difficult for him to turn down. It played out a bit messy, that situation, him going from Newcastle to Man United in the first place, and then, you know, being on gardening leave. And I think the issue with Dan Ashworth, and I think Martin Keown touched upon this actually in the last 24 hours, definitely last 24 hours. If it wasn't for the way he kind of left Newcastle to go to United, and also subsequently him leaving Manchester United, and Sophie, we're not United fans, but looking from the outside, that's embarrassing. It looked awful, to be honest with you. They caught it
a bigger mess than I think what Mikel inherited, or Emery even at Arsenal.
Absolutely, 100%. Because if you're a football club chasing a sporting director for the length of time United was chasing him, and he's gone after 5 months, Sophie, particularly in the state Manchester United are in, with Jim Ratcliffe just only turned up there 5 minutes ago. It looks awful on them on many different aspects. You know, people talk about leadership in football, but that's not the word I would affiliate with Manchester United in the last like 2 or 3 years. But so that's my issue. If Dan Ashworth come to Arsenal, for example, Sophie, listen, it's not my call. I just think personally,
what message does that send? What message do you think that sends? Does it send?
It sends a bad message. It sends a bad message. Like I said, if it wasn't for the way he left Newcastle and obviously what's happened in the last 3 or 4 days, maybe a week, then Arsenal fans I don't think would really care, as long as you've got the right man for the job. But with the backdrop with what comes to Dan Ashworth in recent weeks, I don't think it's a good look. And two, to be honest, Sophie, there's so many names out there. I mean, Campos has been linked with Arsenal for about however many years, about 4 or 5 years. Monchi's been spoken about even when Emery was at Arsenal. There's loads of it. There's Paul Mitchell. There's Michael Edwards. Obviously, anybody knows Michael Edwards at Liverpool. I think he's there for about 4 or 5 years behind the signings of Van Dijk, Mane, and it's not just about him. The players that got bought in at Liverpool, for example, if I'm talking about Michael Edwards, it's the money they made, Sophie, from players that were, let me be polite, mediocre. Crazy money.
Same with Chelsea, their academy players, and then Liverpool. I agree.
So I think, and sort of throw it back to you, Sophie, because I know it's been spoken about how Mikel is going to have a big say and who's going to be the next sporting director. How do I feel about that? I'm kind of to and fro. I'm not too sure. Because people talk about he's going to have a big say. What are we talking? What, the 20%, 50%, 80% say? What are we talking about here? How do you feel about that, Sophie, in terms of he's going to have quite a big say in who comes? I know he's got to work with the person, obviously, but what's your thoughts on it?
Well, the name that's been bandied around, and hi, James, good evening. Good to see you. Jimmy J, JJ, as we like to call him. And Elliot brought it up as well, is Olabe. And I'm probably bastardizing the name, but that's fine. That's exactly what I do here on this channel. And you look at the names and the history, and it seems to be like that would be the path a lot of fans would go. And by the way, where's this comment? I got to bring Bargov. What a world we live in, fans scrutinizing sporting directors. Bring it all. Listen, it's part of the game. If, you know, we do different things here on HS, and this is a really big moment, I think, for the club.
It is.
Because Edu and Mikel kind of rebuilt Arsenal 2.0, of course, with the help of Richard Garlick and Tim Lewis and other people involved at the club. But this is a big moment, and it is a huge role in modern day football. And it's either going to propel us into a new direction when it comes to, you know, the talent that we acquire. Is it going to take pressure off Mikel, or is Mikel going to be given more power? So there's lots of question marks around. To me, the Dan Ashworth thing seems lazy.
Yeah.
That's the word I think. It seems lazy and it smacks of desperation. And I don't think our executive team is built that way. So maybe, again, they know things that we don't. I'm not. If I was the smartest person in the room, I'd be doing the hiring, and I'm not. But just looking from the outside in, it smacks a little bit of desperation to me.
Sophie, I like I said, and I'll repeat what I said. With how things have been handled with him when he left Newcastle, and then obviously what's happening at Manchester United, I'd be even shocked if Arsenal even seriously consider this. I mean, the only link to it would be the fact he's got a relationship with Richard Garlick. But I know when you hear the rumours that he wanted Southgate at Manchester United, and there was a few other things that came out as well. No, like I said, the sporting director job, it's a big role. It's a big role, not just because it's the nature of the job, but also because it's Arsenal Football Club, and we're talking about recruitment and dealing with players' contracts, which is a big thing. So, like I said, there's plenty of suitors. There's Michael Zorc, like there's Lewis Campos, Ashworth, Rosicky has been spoken about. I know there's some people don't really care if it's an ex-Arsenal person. I don't know how experienced Thomas Rosicky is, Sophie, so I'd have to do my homework with that, but I'm not too in uproar that Arsenal haven't appointed somebody in that role yet. As we speak, so doing this podcast now, they could have already have it set in stone, or they're speaking to particular people. Even Ralph Ragnick's name's come up.
See, I'm a fan of Ralph. I think he was he warned Manchester United. He warned them, as did Mourinho, when he said, like, everyone was laughing at him when he said finishing second with this team is one of my biggest achievements in my career, and everyone laughed at him, thought he was just playing a game. And Ralph, people, you know, label him Wreck-It Ralph or whatever. He knew what he was talking about, and he is far more, I think, offers a lot more in that hierarchy role than he does as a coach. But to have someone in that role also that understands the game the way he does, I wouldn't be mad at that at all. Let's see what these guys say. There's a lot for David Weir from Brighton. Yes, anyone from Brighton, their scouting team.
they're a very good representation of what good looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, you know, I think people want the big, you know, the Coca-Cola executive, whereas, you know, if you take the executive at Marks and Spencer, it could just be as fruitful. Right. let's move on. Manchester United just scored to make it 2-1, if anyone cared. All right, so we're talking State of the Union, and by the way, it's a play on the presidential State of the Union. In February of every year, the President of the United States talks to in the Capitol building, and he talks to Congress and Senate, and basically tells the country the health of the State of the Union. Our union is strong. And seeing as we have American owners, I thought, let's do our own little Arsenal State of the Union.
Yes.
I don't have a gavel and I don't have a brown envelope, just in case you were wondering. So let's get into the team, right?
Yeah.
Let's get stuck into a little bit of this, because I found it, and a lot of this part is stimulated by what we saw last night against Monaco. And when you're looking for answers, sometimes they're right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what Mikel has a tendency to do sometimes is put square pegs in round holes, right? Yeah. I understand maybe the necessity to play Thomas Partey at right back. During Timber's on the bench, he can only play a certain amount of minutes. He comes on, though, with, I think, a good amount of minutes yesterday to play out the rest of the game. But then you see a performance like Lewis Skelly, and sometimes you don't trust, maybe, or you're not there yet to give the opportunity. And, I could be talking out my arse. I don't know. But I know he was injured too, right? So there's that plays into it. But do you get the sense that this Hale End class, right, finally, getting some love from Mrs. Part-Time, Mrs.
Oh, I love Donna. Go on, Dons.
Because there's always been the argument, Albert, Reece Nelson, Joe Willock, Eddie Nketiah, and a lot of the time I would just say, well, maybe they're just not as good as Saka. Maybe they're just not at that level. They can't be that. The club sees that, the manager sees that, even the fans see that. I mean, Eddie Nketiah now can't even get a starting spot in a Crystal Palace team that is struggling. Do you think that finally this Hale End class, these graduates, Nwaneri, Lewis Skelly, Heaven, but mostly I'm talking about Lewis Skelly and Nwaneri. Give me your take. Are they ready? And should they be given the opportunity? Should they be considered before a Jesus, before a Sterling, before a Zinchenko, before an XXX? What's your take?
In short, in layman's terms, Sophie, let me get that out of the way before I go in depth on the Highbury squad. Yes, Nwaneri is ready. I've seen enough in preseason. I've seen enough in the cameos that he's played this season. I think it's criminal that Mikel hasn't trusted him more to put him on playing more minutes and maybe even start some more games. In terms of Lewis Skelly, I probably know a little bit less about, but I think he's by trade a midfield player, but now converted left back now. If Mikel thought they was ready to be part of the squad, and I mean, obviously be on the bench for Premier League games, he must feel they're ready to play minutes. Otherwise, why are they there? He promoted them. He put them there. That's the first thing. In terms of are these the next guys that are ready to come through after Saka? I think the best way I can quantify that really is you don't get too many academy kids come through and either hit the ground running or get a sustained run in the team to make that kind of impact. But that's not to say they're not talented. If I'm going back over the years, Sophie, when Milner made his debut at Leeds, was he 16? Harvey Elliott 17. They've got a few there: Bobby Clark, Jamal Kwanzaa, Man City, obviously Foden and Cole Palmer at the time. And I always say this: it's fun. Yes, I would love us to bring in the best in class across the whole of Europe, but you have to be realistic as a football club. You have to bring through someone. Someone's got to be good enough. They can't all be. They're not going to make it, or they're not ready. Someone's going to be good. I mean, the way we spoke about Reece Nelson, he should be where Saka is now, or has been for the last 4 or 5 years, but he isn't. And there's a number of different factors for that Reece Nelson. One was the injuries. And two, I never really see him when he did play for Arsenal, grab it by the scruff of the neck. I actually don't.
He's been decent, hasn't he? Since he's gone.
At Fulham, he has. But sometimes, Sophie, maybe sometimes they just need to go away and play at another club. I know people talk about, but maybe the pressure's not the same at Fulham as at Arsenal. Yeah, that's a plausible debate or argument, but a football career doesn't last forever. But going back to what I was saying before in terms of the question you're asking me, Nwaneri's ready. I need to see a little bit more of Lewis Skelly, but I've been impressed by what I've seen, even in the small snippets of what I've seen. But then I think to myself with Mikel, which I'm sure we'll touch on Mikel a bit more, what is stopping you? What's the reservation? Because you can't turn around and say it's because of their age. You've put them in the squad. You put them on the bench. And that's where Nwaneri, even if forget me and you, Sophie, and the people who watch Arsenal games as Arsenal fans, you're Mikel Arteta on the touchline. You're seeing our Arsenal playing for 60, 70 minutes. Dominating possession, but we're not breaking through the lines. We're not punishing teams. You've got a guy on the bench who you know is ready, and you're hesitant to play him. And I don't understand why. I don't get it. He's a game changer. You need, sometimes, when I think of the word maverick, I think of Cantona. You got to have that X factor or your maverick type player, your Cole Palmer, who can make that difference. Because we talk about fine margins, Sophie, right? And that extra 2-3%. What annoys me, Mikel Arteta, and I'm using the word annoyed particularly for this one. We talk about the extra 2-3%. He saw that with the goalkeeper, Sophie, situation. He saw it. Yes, he wanted to have a red, but he saw it. He knew it. So why can't you apply the same in terms of logic towards bringing in a striker, for example, which we'll touch on a little bit probably in the stream, but also looking at the players you have at your disposal who will make changes. You make a good point, Sophie. I mean, I was just sitting there watching that game against Fulham, and I would have pulled my hair out, but I haven't got any flipping head to pull out. Why are you putting on Jesus? We know what Martinelli and Jesus are going to do. We know what they're going to do because they've been at the club long enough. And they didn't make an impact when they came on against Fulham anyway. That's just my own personal opinion. Why is Nwaneri not coming on? I'd love to ask Mikel that question. What is stopping you from bringing him on, playing him a bit more, having a bit more faith in him? I don't get it.
Is it something as simple as because these comments I find really interesting from fans. Where is it? Oh man, I've lost it now. Nwaneri, no, from Kovacs. Here it is. Nwaneri isn't good out of possession yet. It's these fine margins where you give him 20 minutes, you give him 10 minutes, you give him 5 minutes. You have seen how Pep developed Foden. It's really weird. It's almost like he throws Lewis Skelly into a game to start more than Nwaneri. And maybe that's out of, like Demsek said in the chat, out of default because of injuries and out of his natural position as well. I swear to God, last night I thought to myself, this is the next Ashley Cole. That's how I felt when I watched him. Come at me, throw pelters, I don't care. I don't care. This kid, and on the US tour as well, the way they handled themselves, like in front of the media, they don't really talk to the media, of course. They're very well guarded. But the way they played, the way they're already professional. This is why I can't stand it when people keep calling Saka star boy. No, he's a star man. When you talk about Maverick, right now, Saka is our Maverick. Like Saka has gone up to another level this season. And every single season he improves. And the trust he's the first name on the team sheet. The trust is there. And I think even though through these injuries, Arteta is doing two things. One, he needs to build that trust, but two, he's also protecting them. So as much as I want to see and we're going to see them in the cups, they're going to play in the cups. They're going to have that opportunity to continue to show him, and they've not let him down at all in any opportunity that they've been given. And when you saw Lewis Skelly square up to Haaland now in that City game, and
Yeah,
you look back at that moment, they're ready for the moment. The question is Mikel, and I don't think he's quite there yet, and I don't blame him for taking it in baby steps.
No, it's a fair. It is a fair point, and we spoke about it on the Highbury Squad before in terms of and I'll get people made some good points in chat actually in regards to positioning, and maybe he's not there yet. Arteta, that's a fair point. Maybe just me being Albert and watching the game and getting too emotional, maybe, but possibly, I don't know. But when I see Arsenal struggling to sort of in the final third and break teams down, just something a bit different, possibly. But you make a good point, Seth, in terms of because we've got Palace. Is it next week? I think it is in the next Wednesday. I think it is. I can't remember now. I think it's next Wednesday.
Is it Tuesday? Tuesday or Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah. And like I said, if we get they're probably going to play in that game. I would assume so. And if we get through again, like to the latter stage of a domestic cup competition, luckily we're taking so far touchwood with the FA Cup hasn't started yet, which we've drawn another big side. But that's another story anyway. Conspiracy theories, but it is important to if you're not gonna blood these players or the guys that we say already, your Lewis Skellys and your Nwaneris, for example, then obviously they've got to feature in these cup games, and
oh, they will.
Yeah, they will, and listen, another winner in the semi-finals, and there we go.
Yeah, and James says Nwaneri's been backed over Emil Smith Rowe and Fabio Vieira by ARTETA. That's a very good point. You look at so his minutes need to increase per that backing, and they will. And then the other thing, I've mentioned Lamine Yamal before. Very different La Liga, and a few of the squaddies schooled me on this as well. Slower pace, it's just a totally different tempo. He gets more time on the ball, as we've seen in the Premier League. It's definitely ruthless, and I'm not saying La Liga isn't competitively ruthless. It is, of course, but it's just totally different. And I think this is why we'll see his development kind of play out. Right. Rayhan says, best analogy I heard, Mikel is the dad that took off your bike's training wheels, but after one fall, he put them back on. Very interesting. All right, let's get to our next point and hit the like button if you haven't already. Joined by Albert. Follow his stuff at AlbertJTV, please. And you won't be disappointed. He's doing a watch along across his channel and Lee's channel for the Arsenal-Everton game. And we'll get to all of that at the very end. Right. This is one of my favorite things to do. And some of the squaddies already started doing it because they could sense where I was going with this. We want the Hale Enders to get the opportunity. For those listening on audio, we're showing pictures of Nwaneri and Skelly in heaven and them signing with Jack Wilshere when they were younger. And that image there on the left-hand side, I think, is Lewis Skelly from back in the day with his little Arsenal kit on. So I'm going to combine these two and we'll zip through it, but combined, so it's not a zippy. As we're preparing for it's really mean, but it's not mean, it's reality, right? As we're preparing for January and the summer, and you're looking at players who aren't performing or players who Mikel potentially doesn't trust, I don't think Sterling's been given a fair shout. I understand people that just don't think that he's provided anything, or he hasn't had enough minutes exactly for me, Albert, to be able to say, yeah, he's a total flop. Maybe as the season goes on, we will see someone like him who's been in these positions before come into play at some point. I'm not saying he's the answer by any stretch of the imagination, right? But as we're looking at the Arsenal next phase, the new chapter, but before the sales come, January, the summer, when you see these players that are either continually injured, don't perform when given the opportunity, if Mikel doesn't trust them, then why bother? And also what we need right now in terms of, we're behind Liverpool. We haven't really excelled as a team. We've played maybe 3 or 4 really good matches, and in spurts of different halves. Part of that is damage control. Part of that is strategy from the get-go. What are you doing? And it is a riff off like the Lewis Skellys and the Nwaneris if they're ready. Like, who would you demote, promote? Who for you is a bench guy? Who starts? How do you see how Mikel should shape things up based on performance, what we know, before we've even talked about selling anybody?
Oh dear. Where do you start? So quickly with Sterling. I'm really shocked how this has gone, how this has played out so far. I genuinely thought people might think I'm crazy. I thought he'd play more minutes. I thought he'd play a lot more minutes. That it's not turned out how I thought it would do. I don't know what's happening with him in regards to how he's training or how he's around the club for him to just be bench warming. Really, I thought he was brought in to obviously add to squad depth, but to play. And he's not. So if we're not talking about a player who's in his late 30s, he turned 30 the other day against Fulham, and he bench warmed on his birthday. So I don't know what's going on with that situation. I think I don't know how you feel, Sophie. I look at the signings, obviously, and I'm using these 3 particular players for a reason. So Zinchenko, Jesus, and Havertz. It's fair to say we spent a little bit of money on those 3 players.
I mean, cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, Havertz, you could argue 65 million, you know, but when you score the winning goal in the Champions League and you come with the pedigree from your German football background, when you look at the modern game and the amount of goals he got for us last season, he was one of our best players January onwards. Am I making the case for Havertz already without even letting you finishing the sentence? Yes, I am. I don't think he should be put in the same sentence as Zinchenko and Jesus. And Zinchenko and Jesus helped change a lot of our culture in that first season. You know?
Yeah, and no,
we've outgrown them now. It's okay.
And that's the thing. Football moves very, very quickly and I think that's very, very obvious in terms of we mentioned about being outgrown because he doesn't even play him. You know, you can talk about Zinchenko's injuries or Jesus got injured sort of during the World Cup, but if you actually look at the times they've been fit, they've probably played less than what they've actually played, and he's had them at his disposal to pick them. You brought them to the club. You know, they came as winners, coming from the juggernaut of Man City. But I look at in particular with Jesus, unrecognizable, absolutely fallen off a cliff. And I'm not even talking about the fact of whether he can put the ball in the back of the net, because even if you're gonna not look at that aspect of his game and what he was bringing to the side in the final third and his ability to bring players in, that's completely fallen off a cliff. I mean, you know, we saw the other night, yesterday, the game against Monaco. So if I was never confident he would stick those chances in the back of the net at all, and it actually turned out how I thought it would turn out. And so if it happens at football clubs, I don't have.
He's earning a lot of money, Albert,
and that's the thing.
He was never brought in to be the prolific goal scorer, right? And I do believe that the tempo yesterday, the flow, he played in that part of the game. He does do things that open up spaces for other players. What he does off the ball, he works hard, but he needs 100 opportunities to bury one, you know? And he's always been that player. Even Manchester City fans told us and warned us about that when we bought him. And Zinchenko's just too injury prone. And this is the part I wanted to kind of get onto with you a little bit is, I don't know if you guys spotted, but there's Tierney with his Tesco bag in the top left-hand corner if you're looking at the screen.
Oh, don't get me started.
And Tomiyasu in the top right. You've got Zinchenko down there. I think Kivior deserves some flowers, and I was very harsh on Kivior. But what a guy to be mentally ripped to shreds after the Bayern Munich Champions League game last season, to be ostracized a little bit, not selected, work his way back, have to rebuild trust with Mikel. We know how Mikel can turn on you with a bad performance. And we've seen that before, Albert. But it is time to say goodbye. Now, you can't, who are you going to sell crocked players to? Who are you going to sell? Who's going to buy Zinchenko? Who's going to buy Tomiyasu? Who's going to buy Kieran Tierney? Who's going to buy Jesus, right? I mean, I see Jesus maybe a Saudi Arabia MLS type deal. Same with Zinchenko maybe. We're back to where you said at the top of the show. We need to be better at selling players. Well, now we've got some broken players. Who's going to buy the broken players? And then we'll get on to some of the players who have market value. But first, how do you move around that without losing money again?
So if there's more chance of making money selling me than actually probably getting some money. I said in regards to Zinchenko very, very quickly, and this is nothing new, by the way. This is not knee-jerk, as I thought this for a long time. If you just look at his injury record at Manchester City before we actually looked at him, every Arsenal fan would have said no. Every single Arsenal fan would have been unison and said no, just purely on that fact. And we've got him at the club, and now we've seen how we can't use him because he's crooked. I mean, the Tomiyasu situation. So if I could, I mean, he came on for we played Southampton at home. He played 6 minutes, Sophie, 6, and we've hardly seen him ever since. It's insane. Tierney, with that one, he's obviously doesn't have a future at the club. That's fine. It happens in football. I loved it when we signed him, to be honest. I was a big Tierney fan. But if he's not your man, he's not your man. It's not a problem. But he's here, Sophie. He's in the match day squad, knowing he's not going to play. I can't believe he's still here. I genuinely cannot believe he's still here. And like you said, it's difficult. It's one thing Arsenal, I've said it, I said at the top of the show, we need to get better at selling players, but we've got players now at the club where I don't think even St. John's Ambulance would take them.
Albert, do you know what it feels like? It feels like, when you're packing for a holiday and you've put quite a few pairs of trousers in your bag, and there's this one pair that you just keep looking at in your wardrobe, and you're like, I'll put it in, but you're never going to wear them. But you just want the insurance of having it in your bag. I mean, I pack like that. I'm that type of packer, right? It feels like Tierney is it's insurance at this point. That's all it is. In case of an emergency, break glass. That's it. And unfortunately, these players, Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, Tierney, they feel like they're made of glass. And I think we're in a bit of a pickle and a bit of a conundrum here, because also we've seen before, a lot of people were worried about letting Emile Smith-Rowe go. You let Fabio Vieira go. You let Reece Nelson go. Well, where's the cover for Odegaard? Where's the cover for Saka? How right. So, but then they're not even there to help. They're not covering anyone, and they're getting a full whack wage. Yeah, I said this to Adam on Forever United TV when we were talking about Luke Shaw, and he was really frustrated before the Man United game. And I said, at some point, when you have your sick days at work and then you go over them, they don't pay you, or they pay you half. Yeah, they shouldn't be. It's a ridiculous amount of money to be earning to not be playing football
at all. Yeah, it's crazy. We've put ourselves in a bad position with those players. I go back to the point I said about Zinchenko. I mean. And even as much as I loved Tierney at the time when we was linked with him and I wanted him, but I looked at his injury record at Celtic and I'm like, Arsenal have to look somewhere else. And that's me even saying that at the time when I wanted him at Arsenal, because I just thought to myself, we can't have a situation, and we've got it now. We've got it with 4 players, really. I know Jesus is fit now, but And that's not even talking about the conversation with the amount of games Thomas Partey missed at Arsenal.
The other thing too is I've seen a lot of comments saying Arteta needs to give Tierney a chance. He wasn't even giving him a chance when he was fully fit. Once Zinchenko came and Zinchenko was playing the inverted role,
He was
Tierney
out.
was he doesn't fit into how he wants to play. Okay, so let's get to the tougher part of the conversation. I can't believe we're 55 minutes in and I'm like, oh my God. But it's a really good conversation. So what about the players who potentially do have what's the value for Jorginho? Probably not much, but for me, Jorginho is a value player. And I think that's the difference between the two. He to me still brings value. He will come in handy when we're deep into a Champions League or we need that experience. Late on in a game, he can control the tempo of a game still. And I think that he still can bring some value to the table.
And he's durable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking Trossard, Martinelli, and I'm not bringing up Martinelli because I want to sell Martinelli. I'm just some wacky Arsenal fans who want to sell him. But if you can listen, inches improving. We thought Jesus and Zinchenko were the answer. We've outgrown them, right? Emile Smith-Rowe, we thought that he would be the next, amazing playmaking midfielder. Outgrew. He's sold on. These things happen in football. Mm-hmm. So when you look at Martinelli, Trossard, I do think Trossard still has value in the marketplace. I think Martinelli's probably got the most value. I don't want to sell Martinelli. I haven't given up on him yet. I was
gonna ask you where you are with him actually, because I had jumped on after the United game, and he didn't say selling. He said he's very, very, very concerned. I don't know how much Judges loves Martinelli, by the way.
I did a whole show. I still have the thumbnail. I'll put it up here. It was when everyone was calling us boring Arsenal, and everyone started. And I did another show about scapegoating, and this show was 2 months ago, defending Martinelli, because the great Stevie Nichols come on our show and said the two names that he always looks to see against Liverpool is Martinelli and Saka. Now Martinelli has been injured. I don't think he's come back as the same player. There's these nuances in his game that he hasn't improved on. Looking up, passing the ball quicker, albeit he was offside, but that pass to Saka for the non-goal was that moment where you think, damn it, that's everything that's wrong is encapsulated in this moment, right? Yeah. I haven't given up on him yet, Albert. I still think he has value. But the thing you need to ask is, can you improve, cut the cord? We knew we'd get to a point where we have to sell players that we like in this new Arsenal. Can you cut the cord and improve? I don't think Mikel will have any hesitation to be ruthless if he needs to improve the squad.
I actually think, and I'm not in Mikel Arteta's brain, by the way, people. I actually think, I look at the Arsenal makeup, Sophie, and when I say Arsenal makeup, I mean the core 12, 13 players. And if you used to ask people, probably in the chat or when they watch it back, what one Arsenal player do you think is probably surplus to requirements in terms of who would be upgraded upon? And for me, it would be Martinelli. Now, whether people want to look at it and think, oh, you're giving up on him. No, you have to, as an Arsenal fan, when you're watching games, whether you're at the games or you watch it on TV, you have to go by the acid tests, which is what your two eyes are showing you. So if you touched upon it, the decisions making side of his game, for me at his age and for the length of time he's been in the Arsenal setup, should be a lot better. And I think I'm being kind by saying that. There's many instances I could bring up. I think for a player that plays in his position, he should have a lot more assists. I always make this reference point, Sophie, when we played Manchester United away last season, and Martin Odegaard puts him through. We won the game 1-0, but I'm just using this as an example. And Martinelli's gone through, he had a shot at goal, and Arna tipped it over the bar. But if you actually watch that passage of play very, very closely, he never got his head up once. It's his decision-making that for me is killing his game. Yes, you can talk about the confidence and maybe the way Mikel used him, but I just think I look at other wingers in the league, Sophie. I don't care if they play on the right or the left, by the way. I'm using these names as examples. Your Noni Madueke's, your Anthony Gordon's, your Callum Hudson-Odoi's. I forgot the other guy's name as well, Sophie. Oh God!
You think they're all better than Martinelli? Those guys? You think they're all more? You think they're better than you? Would you choose to have like
that?
Martinelli?
I get the question. I get this because it's a plausible question, and you're right to ask it. But I look at the output and the decision making and the goal contributions and their awareness, and for me, they're streets ahead of him. And they're roughly about the same age bracket as him as well.
Listen, I'm not going to argue with you on the decision making. It is a flaw in his game that he should have evolved by now. But also, I think that definitely earlier on in the season when we had the injuries, when we had the suspensions and the red cards, we want to see Martinelli play a certain way. We want him to have the flair and the pizzazz. We want him to take on players, cut inside, have a shot, be on target, look up, do all those things, right?
That's what I was thinking of, sorry.
But kudos. But Mikel also asks his players to play a certain way in certain moments. And Martinelli's work rate off the ball is incredible.
And that's good.
One of the reasons why he starts over Trossard a lot is because of what he does tracking back, helping that side. This is the game Mikel plays. And unfortunately, in modern day football, right, there's a stifling of creative players. Do you remember even back in the day, whether it was Chris Waddle flying down the wing or John Barnes or Paul Merson or Freddie Ljungberg or, Cristiano Ronaldo when he first came onto the scene, even players like, when Blackburn Rovers won, the name's escaping me, when Blackburn Rovers won the league, like Ryan Giggs, Lee Sharp back in the day.
Wilcox, Ripley.
Wilcox, thank you. Jason Wilcox. It was fun. This is, and I don't know, a lot of people say, oh, it's like Pep taking that control away from the flame. Really? Right? You want to control him and you don't want him to put on the pizzazz and whatever. But when Grealish first came out, that was one of the things that everyone just really enjoyed watching him play. It was like, wow, look at this kid. Look how he plays. And I think that is an issue for creative players. Now, I'm not making excuses for Martinelli because when you see Saka do what he does, but Martinelli's got more, Saka's a more controlled creative, whereas Martinelli, I think, is more of a pizzazz creative. And maybe that's been stifling for him. I don't know, but...
Sophie, do you think it's telling that? Because I was thinking this when we know obviously we had the links with Mudryk. I mean, obviously we didn't get him, but I think for me that's a little bit of an indication, and I kind of think about it probably more now when I look at Martinelli this season, a little bit of last season, but more so this season. Maybe Mikel's thinking, you know what? And I mentioned about, maybe a particular player within the sort of the core of the Arsenal team being surplus of requirements. I do think it is Martinelli, and I think that's why he looked at Mudryk.
What's his value?
Martinelli?
Yeah, what's his value?
So for example, if Arsenal were to cash in now, so that's a good question, man. I'm scared to say the amount because people probably try to kill me in the chat.
Is he 80 million? Is he 50?
I think if you ask me that, you're asking me that now. If Arsenal got over 50 million, I think they've done well.
If Emile Smith Rowe, crocked players we're getting 35 for him.
Martinelli be 50 million plus. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think. Who knows? I don't think he'd go. I don't think he'd definitely go abroad. 100%. That's where we talk about.
You could see him at PSG.
and that's where we go right back to the start of the conversation. We talk about sort of the financial side of it and the revenue and having assets. He would be one.
He is an asset.
One of the, he would. He would. Forget about. I know you can't not forget about what he's been playing like in the last 12 months, but if you know what I mean, in terms of if you're looking to move players on, and football waits for no one, there's no tomorrow, as they say.
Yeah.
It would be somebody that you'd move on.
Okay, so we got 55 from Mikey here. We got 40 million from Rumble, 40 to 50 million, says Elliot, 40 million says Tammy, PW says 60 plus, 50 to 60 says Seb, Ian says 50, Neil says 40, Morgie. Hey Morgie. Oh, so good to see you in chat. And did you get my email? If you're not, let me know. 35 to 40, I think that's a little bit cheap.
No, we get more than that. We'd get more than that.
This whole conversation about the impact of Xhaka, he's had Timber to play with, he's had Calafiori to play with. I think it's obvious that when he has and when Calafiori plays, there's a different vibe. There's a different intensity to how we go forward. Mikel Merino, who I thought was very good yesterday and everyone thought he was good, and everyone was happy that Rice was playing the 6. And these are the things that Mikel does. Like, can't you see it? Like you said, Albert, if we can see it, why can't you see it? So there's a lot of factors that come into play. What about, real quick? Okay, so let me do this one real quick. What about Trossard? Let him go to Saudi?
Oh God, because there was links with that before, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I still think you can get some doubloons for Trossard. I would keep Kivior. I would. I think Kivior is like, and don't take this the wrong way, Arsenal fans. It's the first name that came into my head, but I see him as like a Phil Neville, right? He's a squad. He's never really going to start a lot of games, but when you need him to play 6 or 7 games, he'll be reliable. Anything beyond the 6 or 7, 8 games, the wheels start to come off. But also Phil Neville was adaptable for Manchester United, right? Could play in a variety of different positions. Kivior, who I think is actually playing better in that centre-back role. I think players like him are so important to a team. And I would keep him because I think his value will increase. I don't think his value will decrease. He's done nothing to indicate that he's not a reliable player.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's the way as you see it with the socials, the way some of our fans go with certain players is just was crazy. But particularly with him, I just think I don't recall him having, nightmare after nightmare performance. He hasn't had that Arsenal.
Bayern Munich, really. Bayern Munich and Liverpool at home.
Yeah.
And that was a combo with that goal. It wasn't just him.
But like you said, he can play left back. Mikel's got this big thing about having two players that can play in 2 different positions. So I get why I would keep Kivior personally, unless you go into the market again, even with the signing of Calafiori, to strengthen that side of the pitch again, which you could argue again, because obviously Tomiyasu's not fit and Zinchenko, they're not all going to be here, Sophie, come 18 months. There's no chance.
No, the summer, they won't be here after the summer. Okay, here's what we've talked about, and I'm going to end on a fun one for everyone, because you know how I love to dream. I'm a dreamer. But everyone listening on replay, let us know what you think of our State of the Union. Yeah. The who stays, who goes, who gets promoted, demoted before any type of transactions in any transfer window have happened. Do you want to bench the senior players who aren't performing and give Hale Enders an opportunity to play? How does Mikel balance that? What are your thoughts when you look at also kind of the commodities that we have? What do you protect? Because we need to make money too. Who's completely worthless and not worth any kind of fee? Then you've got the Hale End. Is this class as good as Saka? Can they be as good as Saka? How would you manage them? How would you play them? Again, they're a huge value to the club. And what do you think about the football club off the pitch? How healthy do you think we are? How important is this to you? Do you care? You should care, because money's important. The sporting director, again, is this something that you have a vested interest in? Will it impact Mikel Arteta, his power? How do you see that unfolding? And the last one I'm going to do for fun, because let's all dream for a little bit. We're 3rd in the table for the Champions League. We talk about Mikel's legacy. Why not us? I know we've never won. I know this is where people will say your reputation in Europe is crap. You've never done anything. Why are you even talking about it? Don't give it any air in it. But I'd like to give it some air.
Come on, Soph, come on.
Why not Arsenal in a season where things are a little weird, right? City a little off. I mean, Real Madrid never ever,
Mad
write
where
them
they
off.
are. Yeah.
But look where City are in the league. Look where Real Madrid are in the league. I mean, Juventus, who'd have thought they'd beat City? There's these unknowns, and this new format seems to suit us. Albert, what if? I mean, forget the statue. I mean, just, what if?
Soph, people, squaddies in the chat, our last European trophy success, the great man Kevin Campbell played in that. So it's a long time ago. It's one of our biggest bugbears, Sophie. We love to see them big ears, man, as Kenny Ken says to me. You know what it is with cup competitions? It's an interesting one, because if you look at the heritage of the Champions League, I'm not talking about Madrid winning it a million times. I'm talking about just even going back to the old European, the European Cup days. Red Star Belgrade making the final many years ago and winning it against Marseille. That's a long time ago. Poor Chris Waddle. Tears aloft. But Porto Mourinho side, 04. Was it Porto Monaco Porto final, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the Lyon, was it Lyon? Yeah.
And then he done it with Inter. We weren't a fancied side.
That was a treble winning season, that one too.
Yeah, they beat Bayern Munich in the final. Yeah. So in cup competitions, it can happen. I know why people might think, oh God, you're talking rubbish, is because it's us and our, as you mentioned, Sophie, our European heritage or lack of it.
Got to start somewhere, Albert. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I can't listen. I'm in my 40s now. I don't want to be talking about us winning the Champions League when I'm 70, 80. I will be proper Albert then. But Sophie, it's got to happen in our lifetime. I can't. As long as we're in this podcasting game, we need some. Arsenal needs to give us some ammo. They need to give us something to have conversations with rival fans. Give us something. You see them bloody lot in Cyprus on the win too.
Yeah, it's the baton that we keep getting beaten over the head with, and there's nothing that we can do about it. Yeah. And to me, I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe this season it seems, and I don't want to use the word easier, everyone. Don't say it. I know. Okay, the road to the Champions League final might seem simpler than winning the Premier League. I think there's a method that we've got down that suits how he has been wanting to play, be it because of injuries and default or not. There's the Inter Milan game, you would say, was, we should have won that too, or at least got a point out of that match.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We will see. Elliot's hot take: with a top January bye, Arsenal can win the CL. Now got them all dreaming now. Here we go. Score from a corner in the final.
So look what you've done. You've peppered the chat.
I have a good feeling for the CL, but in the near future, I feel the near future could be May next year. Well, listen, it's been a great show, and it's been great, hasn't it? I've got a couple of really quick housekeeping items, if you may allow me. Listen, I'm going to give this away soon. It's these ZENITH coins. Let's get rid of that little banner there. Let's see. Let's just put this banner up. The ZENITH coins Invincible piece. 5 coins, football prizes. Go to footballprizes.co.uk if you want to give someone. If you want to win one, the Highbury Squad at gmail.com, the Highbury Squad at gmail.com. I'd like to hear a fun Invincible story. Fun, sad, rad, whatever it is, you let me know. Next week is the announcement. You still have a few days to get it in. The Highbury Squad at gmail.com. Its value is £149, and you can have it, courtesy of moi and ZENITH coins. And if you are looking for a Christmas gift, please go to ZENITH coins. put in squad 15, get your North Bank coin, get your Clock End coin, or get your Arsenal coin, and gift yourselves or gift a friend. And then, of course, football prizes. Please go visit our friends. I put the football prizes thing up as I was doing Zenith coins, but you guys know the deal. Football prizes, go get your ticket. It ends on Tuesday. It's for the hospitality for 2, Arsenal versus Ipswich, and you could go in the ring for signed shirts by Pires, David Seaman, Calafiori, Benjamin White, and the legend that is Gilberto as well. Legends and new players of the Arsenal that we are falling in love with. So please go do that. All right. One more thing. Tomorrow we have a very special show. It is Arsenal versus Everton. Albert will be at the game. And as Super Kev always said, it's the Kevin Campbell derby. This billboard outside of Emirates Stadium, I think it's across the street. Many people sent this to me yesterday, and it's a beautiful thing to see what the club are doing. If you are going to the game, make sure you get there a little earlier and in your seat, because there will be an acknowledgement of Super Kev between his 2 old clubs. And tomorrow night, we're talking to the Toffee TV guys previewing the game. And that will be at 6 o'clock UK time, 6 o'clock UK time for the Kevin Campbell discussion, a derby with Ped and Baz from Toffee TV. So you won't want to miss that. And there will be a special presentation at the game. And Kevin's family will be there.
Oh, brilliant.
And I'll check with his sister that I could tell you guys. And if I can, I'll tell you tomorrow night.
I've got my shirt ready, Sophie, to wear on Saturday. Don't worry about that. My Kevin Campbell shirt.
I love it. I love it. It's beautiful, and I'm so happy that the clubs have come together and that they're doing that. And it is our role here at Highbury Squad to keep the legacy going and keep the legacy alive. So make sure you tune in tomorrow, 6 o'clock UK time, for a preview of Arsenal versus Everton with the Toffee TV guys. You can find this guy at Albert JTV. Tell the kids what you're doing, what you got coming up.
So if I've got to say, love to some of the guys in chat. Morgan, love your comment. Tell him about he's 70. I need to see it this year. Yeah, that's one trophy. I think I'd take that over the Premier League. So I've said it for about 3 or 4 years now. I would 100%. I would take it over the Premier League. 100%. Not even 99.9. 100%.
I didn't think so before, and Harry convinced me. So,
have you been convinced, Sophie? Have you?
I have. I've been turned.
Sophie, that European heritage, man. Honestly, it would elevate us tenfold.
Yeah, definitely.
Tenfold. But yeah, sorry, Sophie, let me not digress. Sorry, people.
Yeah, don't digress, because we're way. I've gone into Qatar World Cup overtime, 17 minutes.
Oh God! Right.
Hope everyone's still listening on replay.
Big up Elliot, man. Love you, bro. Yeah, Albert JT, we've got my own channel. I was doing a watch along for the game on Saturday, but
you're going to the game.
I'm going now to the game, and I will be also at the Ipswich game as well. So you'll see me doing YouTube shorts, previous reviews. I should have another episode of Live Stories coming up with a very special guest, which I'm looking forward to getting him on. That's the only clue that I'm giving away. And yeah, you'll see me about anywhere, and obviously the women's show on the Highbury Squad as well.
Yeah. Okay. Get your stuff together. Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much. Big up Albert, of course. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in. Really appreciate every single one of you. I look for.
Jesus,
did you read that before I took it off the screen?
You have it. Yeah, I saw it. Thanks, Jay. Love you, Jay. Love you, pal.
Awesome stuff. Don't forget, tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, for our preview of Arsenal versus Everton with the Toffee TV guys. Until tomorrow, you know the rules here at Squad Central. Don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. Albert, we love you. Good night, Squaddies. At ease, everyone.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Top show. We like all comments.